Chapter 91. Oh. Can I only manipulate swords at Class C? But that means I can do it. Lu Shu never fully harnessed the abilities of the celestial map from the start. Previously, he thought that once students of the Daoyuan class reach Class E, they would be able to learn skills like sword manipulation. Hearing Li Xianyi's words now, sword manipulation was actually a complex skill. Was Class C considered high? Of course it was. Even B-class metahumans were considered as rare and leading characters in the metahuman community. How weak could Class C be? Although practitioners were improving rapidly in this environment where the magical energy was increasing, and someday someone might break through into Class A, there was none now. If the skills of the few people of Class B were classified as God-bestowed, the people of Class C could at least be classified as gifted. But Lu Shu was thinking of a question. His sword manipulation technique was rather different in concept compared to Li Xianyi's. Just based on the previous move by Li Xianyi, even if he was manipulating a petal instead of a sword, he could kill without batting an eyelid. Lu Shu, on the other hand, could only manipulate the corpse dog, and this was only due to it being created by himself, so there was probably some sort of chemistry between them. Although he had a shortcut to manipulating swords, having been able to do it as a Class E, he could not manipulate other objects. His manipulation of the corpse dog was also not sustainable. The mastery of sword manipulation improves together with his mastery of his celestial abilities. As he trains more, he could someday manipulate objects with much more ease. Lu Shu would not tell Li Xianyi that he could already manipulate swords, that would only bring him trouble. However, he thought that if he could learn it early on his own, it would be quite helpful when he learns it openly in future. Others might start from absolutely nothing, but not him. Today, Lu Shu instructed Lu Xiaoyu to learn attentively so she could take a nap in the afternoon. Based on his calculations, Lu Xiaoyu would very likely break through the first nebula tonight. Lu Shu decided to let her attain this milestone on her own, before investigating Lu Xiaoyu's skill changes together. Since he could summon the corpse dog in the past, there would surely be some change in Lu Xiaoyu when she completes her first nebula. Li Xianyi sat in his garden peacefully, and beside him was Lu Xiaoyu, self-studying a Chinese textbook. He received news that the Golden Foundation had received resistance and disapproval from the governments from some other countries. Compared to those places, the domestic attitude towards the Golden Foundation had been much more peaceful. When it came to worldly issues, authority was never something which could be shared peacefully. The Golden Foundation had no ulterior motive, but as a huge organization, how could they have no resources for training? In the past, when magical energy was scarce and severely lacking, everyone trained with their life on the line. Even if the Golden Foundation did not have the slightest ambition, how many people could condone them? The Golden Foundation was totally different from the United Nations, as it possessed immense destructive power. At that time, Li Xianyi would laugh at the people who claimed that training would lead to immortality. With so many duels and fights, who would still have the life to enjoy the benefits of immortality? People who benefit from the nature of heaven and earth had to realize that there would come a time for them to give back. It wasn't all about who had a shorter life, but it was just unrealistic to merely yearn for longevity. But it was different now. It was the era of omnipresent magical energy and aura. The magical energy was constantly getting stronger, and if Li Xianyi had been born decades later instead, he would probably be searching for the secrets to immortality. Recently, apart from the sporadic appearance of remains everywhere, there were massive changes to many places. People were changing, the mountains were evolving, and even animals and plants were mutating in places rich in magical energy. Was there anything that would not change? Li Xianyi was unsure. Under such circumstances, would the Golden Foundation change? Li Xianyi's greatest worry remains the same. What if there was conflict within the Golden Foundation? There had already been suggestions for the Golden Foundation to gather training resources. They would definitely have to associate themselves with the remains. Without the capabilities to possess them, in what position were they to talk about peace and protection? Li Xianyi did not know how much time he had left, so passing down his trade was something he always felt he had to do. Li Xianyi turned around and looked at Lu Xiaoyu. If he could have her as his successor, many problems could be solved. Lu Xiaoyu was only 11. Even if she had spent most of her time with Lu Shu, there was still time to educate and reshape her. This education refers to her personality and character. If everyone was like Lu Shu, the golden foundation wouldn't exist. As Li Xianyi thought about this, Lu Xiaoyu had gone out and got back from buying some tidbits. Eat them. Eat them. They're all yours. Lu Xiaoyu did away with the formalities and ripped open a bag of chips, munching immediately after. Do you want to learn swordplay? Li Xianyi asked again. Since this girl was greedy for food, I'll bank on it. Lu Xiaoyu declined the offer and asked cautiously, but can I still continue eating? Lu Shu then received, from Li Xianyi's distress, plus 177. Li Xianyi, rather annoyed, flailed his hand. Eat it. She's rather staunch in her principles. Li Xianyi thought again before asking suddenly, did Lu Shu tell you not to learn swordplay from me yesterday? Nope, Lu Xiaoyu shook her head. Oh, that's good, Li Xianyi nodded her head. This little girl very obediently heeded Lu Shu's every instruction. If Lu Shu did instruct her to not learn from him, he would never be able to have her as his disciple. Thinking here, Li Xianyi continued, actually your aptitude. Before Li Xianyi finished, Lu Xiaoyu rudely interrupted, he told me the day before. Li Xianyi? Would it kill you to say everything at once? As Lu Shu was flipping his chemistry textbook in class, another line came, from Li Xianyi's distress, plus 588. Such high distress, could something have happened to the old man? After all, he is already so old. He decided to send a message to Lu Xiaoyu after some thinking, if you angered the old man, console him. He could not say it directly, and could only put it as such. Lu Shu did not tell Lu Xiaoyu that he could gain distress points from other people to protect his authority as an older brother. He could never tell her that his distress points could be used to speed up training by obtaining celestial fruits through his system. Moreover, if Lu Xiaoyu knew the truth, she would establish the link with him angering her for no reason occasionally. Lu Xiaoyu thought for a moment and handed Li Xianyi a potato chip. Here. For you. To Lu Xiaoyu, sharing good food was the greatest consolation. Li Xianyi felt appeased momentarily. This was the first time Lu Xiaoyu took the initiative to console him after angering him. He knew Lu Xiaoyu loved potato chips, and sharing her favorite with himself showed that Lu Xiaoyu actually appreciated him. But just as he extended his arm, Lu Xiaoyu's minute hands retracted and broke the potato chip into 2 halves, handing Li Xianyi 1 half. 1 half is enough to appease Li Xianyi. As Lu Shu looked at his chemistry book, he was suddenly stunned. From Li Xianyi's distress points, plus 666. Chapter 92. That night, Lu Shu personally monitored Lu Xiaoyu's training by her side, in fear that she would fall asleep. Both their training methods were unique, and at that point in time, Lu Li and Jiang Shui had completed one large cycle of training, but the next step wasn't passed down yet. These 2 days, Lu Li walked with a spring of arrogance but had yet to find trouble with Lu Shu. Even though he had completed one large cycle of training, he realized that amongst Class FS, strength-typed metahumans were invincible. There were no elemental or other types in Class F, only strength-type and practitioners. Lu Li also found out through others that his own training would increase 900 pounds of strength, while strength-type metahumans had 1,200 pounds. Although Lu Li had contributed mountains of distress points, he wasn't stupid. Finding trouble with Lu Shu at this time would be the same as asking to be humiliated. Even though Lu Shu had awakened, he could only stagnate at Class F for a long period of time, while Lu Li was different. His future was more promising. In the day, Jiang Shui reminded Lu Shu not to let anyone know about their exchange with the magical stones. Someone on the Golden Foundation forum mentioned that a rich businessman had offered a high price for the stones and a deal was made. The student who sold the stones was informed by his class teacher that his supply of magical stones was halted for a year. Valuable items like magical stones, Lu Shu could sell them, but so did others. He wasn't the only one lacking money. The child that was punished for selling his magical stones was rumored to have a tier B aptitude and felt no need to use the stones due to his high aptitude. And since his family needed money and saw someone else buying on the forums, he sold them. But the consequence was 1 year without any magical stones. In fact, he wasn't only losing out on a monthly 2 magical stones, but given his aptitude, he would have quickly risen to Class E and in another year, probably Class D, which would reward him more magical stones. But all these no longer concerned him. The Heavenly Network was strict about its distribution of magical stones, and once caught, there would be dire consequences. If Lu Shu did not wish for his supply of magical stones be halted, and Jiang Shuyi to lose his extra supply of magical stones from Lu Shu, they would have to keep their mouths shut. To people like Jiang Shuyi, relative to his aptitude, magical stones were like the icing on the cake, but many influential households have some kind of urgency. In the previous era, they were the leaders of their own fields, but with the new era, in order to not lag behind, they had to continuously fight to be ahead. How did rich people get rich? Because of their judgment for the future and for good opportunities. 1 magical stone may be insignificant, but what about 100? That would be enough to propel your own children to the front lines of the era. For these people, no one wanted to be left behind. Lu Shu stood beside Lu Xiaoyu and waited for her to complete her training. It was almost dawn when Lu Xiaoyu opened her eyes, but she was still in a blank state. Her eyes had the intensity like a black hole before returning to normal 1 second later. Lu Shu, I've broken through the first nebula and a black hole appeared. Lu Xiaoyu excitedly announced. Previously, she knew that Lu Shu had broken through the first nebula long ago and was lagging behind, which made her anxious. If Lu Shu kept progressing this quickly, the gap between them would only increase. But now, she had broken through the first nebula and Lu Shu had only broken through the first 2 stars of the second nebula. Lu Shu's breakthrough happened 2 nights ago. The number of celestial fruits required for the second star of the second nebula was still reasonable, and breaking through that was only a matter of days. Nothing special happened besides a more intense surge of celestial power, a denser celestial cloak and increased strength. Black hole. What does the black hole do? Can it materialize outside the body? Lu Shu asked curiously, as his corpse of the dog could be materialized and used as a physical attack. So what could Lu Xiaoyu's black hole do? At the mention of black holes, you would associate it with the word swallow. Lu Xiaoyu shook her head. It can't materialize, it can only stay within my body. What is this situation, although both their powers are quite similar? They also appear to be opposite. Lu Shu also could not figure out the use of the black hole. But at this moment, Lu Xiaoyu suddenly closed her eyes, and after a short silence, she opened her eyes and showed Lu Shu her hand. A small black ant stood atop Lu Xiaoyu's hand. The black ant was different. It was like a concentrated spot of black smoke. For some reason, Lu Shu felt that it was some kind of soul. The feeling was very similar to his corpse dog, which was one of the 7 souls of instincts. Lu Shu directed his curious gaze towards Lu Xiaoyu. This is? I could suddenly feel the souls in the surrounding, and this is an ant that died last night. I wanted to bring it back when the black hole swallowed it, which turned it into this. Now, it follows my commands. Lu Xiaoyu explained everything so that Lu Shu could understand better. She knew that she had gained something incredible. Lu Shu used his finger and pressed the ant atop Lu Xiaoyu's palm. The feeling was just like touching a real ant. It can't be. By this logic, if it can swallow the soul of the ant, then it can do the same to human souls. Lu Shu was really shocked. Try and see how many ants it can swallow. Lu Xiaoyu compliantly went into the house to look for dead ants as Lu Shu followed behind. Lu Xiaoyu once again shuts and opened her eyes and said, "It can only swallow one." The moment a new soul entered, the previous one would disappear. What can an ant accomplish? What a useless power. Wait. Lu Shu went into a deep thought before explaining his idea to Lu Xiaoyu. This black hole may be limited to a single soul. Try something else. As a result, Lu Xiaoyu got her hands on a small sparrow which flew around at her will. The young lady was having fun while the new ant disappeared. Lu Shu had an idea. Since the black hole could duplicate an exact copy of the soul it swallowed, what would happen if Lu Xiaoyu managed to swallow a metahuman's soul? Lu Shu felt troubled. How did such an innocent girl suddenly have a connection to souls? What a contrast. Chapter 93. Sparrows were also considered as adaptable birds. During the winter, their feathers would be more resistant to the cold weather. They would save up on food way before winter, and when winter finally arrives, they would still hunt for food in the morning, but they had relatively far less physical activity. The little sparrow by Lu Xiaoyu's side looked very fast, but it was in fact not in control of itself. Whatever action it executed was controlled by Lu Xiaoyu. How long can you control this sparrow? Will your celestial energy be depleted? Lu Shu asked curiously. There's no time limit. No usage of celestial energy whatsoever, Lu Xiaoyu replied in glee. Lu Shu was shocked. Why did his manipulation of the sword, the corpse of the dog, required the constant use of celestial energy while Lu Xiaoyu had such a good skill? No usage of your energy for the entire duration? Lu Shu asked with a darkened face. Yeah, conjuring it out of the black hole required a little energy, but there's a difference in consumption of energy when I conjure an ant compared to a sparrow. Lu Xiaoyu thought before answering. I see. It seems like the uniqueness of Lu Xiaoyu's attainment of the first nebula is as such. She could pull souls into the black hole and use her celestial energy to create a new body. Which goes to say that this black smoke is real, although it might look like an illusion. If conjuring an ant and a sparrow requires different amounts of celestial energy, it means that the amount of energy needed depends on the quality of the conjured target. Lu Shu explained his thoughts to Lu Xiaoyu, including the fact that this could be used on metahumans. But they obviously could not take a life of a metahuman just for the sake of trying it out. Lu Shu and Lu Xiaoyu were not such evil people. Lu Xiaoyu then thought of her own solution. Let's go to Mongshan Cemetery. Lu Shu was curious, what for? There are definitely souls there, we can experiment on one. Lu Xiaoyu said excitedly. Lu Shu felt slightly uncomfortable, and he held on to Lu Xiaoyu. No. Think about it, the cemetery houses mostly normal people who are dead. What if you conjure an old lady? What use would she be when we are fighting other people? But this was not the main point. Lu Shu thought for a moment before continuing. A large number of people who lie there are normal people. They never committed huge sins in their lives, and their bodies are laid there peacefully. It won't be nice playing with their souls. When you want to change souls, the previous soul could disappear from this world entirely. Who did they offend to deserve that? Oh, Lu Xiaoyu thought for a moment and agreed that it was rather unfair to do this to an innocent person. Lu Xiaoyu was not inconsiderate, and it was just a wild thought at that moment. After Lu Shu's reminder, she also understood how reckless her previous plan was. After discussing on the sofa for a long period of time, the main gist of the conversation was Lu Shu telling Lu Xiaoyu about the ethics behind which souls could be used. Good people shouldn't be touched, same goes for normal people. The souls of bad people could be targeted freely. This, to Lu Shu, was a process of inculcating morals to Lu Xiaoyu. Although the two of them were not extremely morally upright, it was because they had their own moral compass. But that did not mean they were not ethical. This was what Lu Shu wanted to impart to Lu Xiaoyu. What's the plan then? Lu Xiaoyu said in disappointment, I want to conjure a powerful one. Lu Shu pondered for a moment before replying, I have a plan. Go and sleep first, I'll bring you to a place tomorrow morning. It was only about 2 in the middle of the night. Lu Shu couldn't stop his swordplay training halfway. As Li Xianyi mentioned, before the foundation of vitality was strong, not training would result in his skills worsening. But how could Lu Xiaoyu fall asleep now? She was constantly thinking about the plan Lu Shu said he had for her, and unable to hold back her excitement, she ran out to see Lu Shu train. Lu Xiaoyu sat on the small table which belonged to Li Xianyi. She looked enthusiastically at Lu Shu even though his training was rather boring and repetitive. Once Lu Shu was done training, Lu Xiaoyu followed him back home. Li Xianyi, who was looking from the garden, was rather flustered. Previously, he was excited and glad to know that the 2 kids living beside him were of Tier A potential. Now, he didn't even have a disciple. From Li Xianyi's distress, plus 55. In the morning, at the west of Jiandong Market was a live meat slaughter. This was an established and professional slaughterhouse. When the pigs were slaughtered, they would be stamped and labeled as fresh. Lu Shu himself wasn't sure if this was the practice elsewhere. Before the pigs were killed, they would be brought into a room to allow them to relax for 24 hours. Some claimed that this was an act of compassion to the pigs, highlighting the good in humanity. But was this really the case? Within these 24 hours, they will not be allowed to eat for the last 12 hours, and not allowed to drink for the last 3 hours. Evidently, it was to reduce their energy, to reduce the blood concentration and to increase the quality of their meat. The world was as such. The strong would never show true care or compassion to the weak. Humans keep pets, and some people really do love their pets. But do the pets have freedom? Lu Shu doubted it. To him, it was important to constantly improve and become stronger in this world. This would prevent him from suffering the same fate as the cows, sheep, pigs, and dogs. It was as simple as that. Lu Shu never thought about letting anyone else decide his fate for him. The 2 siblings squatted at the side, and hearing the shrieks of the pigs inside, Lu Xiaoyu looked at Lu Shu emotionlessly. So this is your plan? So I'll get the soul of a pig and be a pig rider girl? From Lu Xiaoyu's distress, plus 388. Cough, Lu Shu cleared his throat, I'm just trying to let you get used to it first. A pig is rather strong. There's still donkey soup at the other side of Jiandong Road. They'll slaughter a donkey every Monday, maybe you can swap souls when that happens. Oh, pig rider to a donkey rider, Lu Xiaoyu was still emotionless. Lu Shu, could you be any duller? From Lu Xiaoyu's distress, plus 499. Lu Xiaoyu was tearing out the grass from her side. Shouldn't have trusted Lu Shu with coming up with a brilliant idea in the early morning. But there was no use saying anything else now. There's no harm in trying her skills on a pig, and after some looking around, Lu Xiaoyu settled on one which was the least ugly. If it was Lu Shu, he would definitely pick the strongest one. But a teenage girl thought completely differently, she wanted one which was aesthetically appealing. In her eyes, donkeys or pigs couldn't compare to a little sparrow. Chapter 94. Lu Shu had his own ideas. Once he knew of Lu Xiaoyu's skill, he wanted to comprehend it on a deeper level. He wanted to know if the body of the conjured being had any difference to its original self. The ant and the sparrow did not seem to deviate much from their original selves, so Lu Shu wanted to find a bigger animal. As to what she would conjure in future, that could be left to the future. There would definitely be a chance for her to do it. Lu Xiaoyu followed Lu Shu home with a black face. Lu Shu, once home, said gleefully, hurry and summon your pig. From Lu Xiaoyu's distress, plus 99. The little girl summoned the pig unwillingly. At that instant, Lu Xiaoyu's eyes lit up upon seeing what was masked within the black smoke. The pig looked especially dumb when it was white and fat, but when it was in its spiritual form, black fog swirled and surrounded its dark body. It had a much fiercer and stronger aura than before. Looking at it now, it's not ugly at all. Still acceptable. Greeted by this sight, Lu Xiaoyu was finally happier. All of a sudden, Lu Shu landed a punch on the pig, knocking it out. Lu Shu, what have you done? Lu Xiaoyu held onto the pig with a look of sorrow. After all, this pig didn't come about easily. From Lu Xiaoyu's distress, +37. I have to test the spiritual pig, how different is it from the others? Only then will we know if it's strong or weak, Lu Shu explained. Judging by what happened, this pig was indeed no different from a normal one. Lu Xiaoyu then stared at Lu Shu as he took a fruit knife from the kitchen. Lu Xiaoyu couldn't bear to look anymore. Lu Shu made a cut on the pig using the fruit knife. Black smoke billowed out of the wound, just like how blood would flow out from a normal pig. At this instant, Lu Shu summoned the corpse dog from his celestial map. As the sword appeared, Lu Shu noticed the black pig was vibrating uncontrollably. The moment the corpse dog touched the black pig, it popped like a bubble and disappeared. Lu Xiaoyu turned slowly and emotionlessly towards Lu Shu. So the pig which I spent so much time in the early morning to conjure is gone just like that. From Lu Xiaoyu's distress, +599. This morning, Lu Xiaoyu was on an emotional roller coaster. When she started to grasp her new ability, even a little sparrow could give her much happiness. Then, when Lu Shu promised her something better, she realized that he brought her to try her skills on a pig. Afterwards, the flustered Lu Xiaoyu went home to realize that the pig actually looked decent enough for her to ride on, only for it to be destroyed by Lu Shu. Can we still live together? Huh? How dumb are you? Seeing Lu Xiaoyu's rage, Lu Shu apologized and promised to make her a fried tomato egg every night for 1 week. Lu Xiaoyu's face was still gloomy. 2 weeks. All right, whatever you say. To Lu Xiaoyu, there was nothing which could not be solved by a week's worth of tomato eggs. If that did not work, then 2 weeks would probably do the trick. Lu Shu, in an instant, started considering another question. An ordinary knife would hurt the pig, and it would only bleed. But once the corpse dog touched it, it exploded. Its explosion made things hard for Lu Shu now that Lu Xiaoyu was so angry. Lu Xiaoyu then went out to play with sparrows. Lu Shu thought deeply. This thing was made of a soul, while the corpse dog represented joy, one of the 7 souls of instinct. Due to this characteristic, it could deal immense damage to souls? As he had never been in a fight, he did not know what it was like. Previously, the corpse dog had not much use, apart from being able to be controlled by Lu Shu. It didn't seem like much. Looking at it again, it seemed like Lu Shu still had much to discover about his own celestial map. Lu Shu then hurriedly prepared a meal for Lu Xiaoyu. While cooking, he looked at the Golden Foundation's forum and chanced upon a page with 300,000 page visits. He clicked on it and read on. Just last night, at the southern state of Azhou, 3 metahumans worked together to break into a bank vault. 2 of them were elemental metahumans, and the last one was strength type. Apart from their own abilities, they did not engage the use of other methods to break into the vault, stealing $3.17 million worth of cash. As the 3 metahumans were escaping, they killed 3 policemen and injured 17 people along the way. The post also stated that these 3 people actually avoided the surveillance cameras, but probably due to their inexperience they did not know there was a security alarm inside the vault. None of them made any mistake, but on the way out people noticed them and called the police. That was really unfortunate. This shocking post also included a photo of the bank which was smashed open and a video of the entire police chase filmed by passers-by. Lu Shu then noticed that there were black coats in the video, but they did not do anything to take down the perpetrators. Based on the video, it seemed like those metahumans were at least Class E. This was a cooperation between 3 Class Es. Was Shi Fei strong? Perhaps to Lu Shu and Lu Li he was strong. But Lu Shu was clear now that the perpetrators and himself were approximately Class E. Thinking of which, the entire Daoyuan classes of China consisted of hundreds of thousands of people. How many class form teachers were there? After all, the Heavenly Network only had a head start of about a year or so. How many metahumans above Class E could they nurture to deploy all over the entire country for law enforcement? Thinking of it now, the person who started the Heavenly Network to deal with metahumans was really wise. If they didn't start regulating metahumans early, things could be hard to control when they get out of hand. Now that they had brought away the dangerous metahumans, the remaining metahumans could be kept under control, while those who could still awaken and improve were kept under tabs in Daoyuan class, and all they had to think about was how to improve their training. Such a scenario involving 3 Class E metahumans was a rare sight. Chapter 95. The first crime by metahumans which shocked the entire country had happened, and more might be on the way. These 3 people were still on the run. According to some news, when the men of the Heavenly Network arrived, the 3 people had already retreated to the forests, as though they were extremely familiar with the escape route. Based on Lu Shu's judgment, only 6 to 7 black coats were involved in this incident. For some reason, Lu Shu always felt that Luo Cheng had been prioritized by the Heavenly Network since the start of the era of the metahumans. There were far more black coats in Luo Cheng compared to other places, and this was information Lu Shu found from his time lurking on forums on the Golden Foundation. In many cities, some Daoyuan classes were huge. So huge that there were more than 200 students in a class. Luo Cheng, on the other hand, had only 50 people per class. This also showed that the Heavenly Network's presence in Luo Cheng was much more prominent. Why? Luo Cheng might have been an ancient capital, but it did not have any political importance now. Lu Shu felt something was not right. From the bottom of his heart, Lu Shu wished that these 3 offenders were caught and apprehended. Once society stabilized, normal people would be happy and at ease. Who could have peace if such criminals were on the loose? At least if there really was chaos one day, Lu Shu did not have to worry about Lu Xiaoyu's safety as she already had methods for self-defense. Lu Shu wasn't particularly ambitious and he just longed to live freely. He did not want to see the world in chaos even if it could benefit him. Lu Xiaoyu was still moody as she went to do her work after having her meal. Lu Shu was helpless. Based on Lu Xiaoyu's personality, her mood would not improve until she sees the first plate of tomato egg. Li Xianyi was curious as to why Lu Xiaoyu was angry. "Xiaoyu, why do you look so angry?" Lu Xiaoyu kept quiet and did not speak a word. Her mood was extremely bad and she felt like taking it out on someone. But Lu Shu just reminded her yesterday not to anger Li Xianyi. To Lu Shu and Lu Xiaoyu, at least the kindness Li Xianyi was showing them did not involve any complications. Even when Lu Shu rejected his conditions, Li Xianyi was still willing to treat them compassionately. Li Xianyi treated Lu Xiaoyu very well too, be it buying food for her or helping her with work. Auntie Lu had told Lu Shu the old man was learning primary school math. Once he masters it, he will teach and guide Lu Xiaoyu. Such a good man, it wouldn't be nice to get distress points from him. Lu Shu thought about giving the old man a refresher fruit to improve his body. After all, the refresher fruit really was a mysterious fruit which worked wonders. But how could he explain the origins of the fruit? So Lu Shu did not do it. The refresher fruit was, apart from the celestial map, probably his biggest secret, and one which he could not afford to reveal. Hearing Lu Shu's words, Lu Xiaoyu was reflecting too. So even if she was very angry now, she did not take it out on the old man. Instead, she apologized and offered a potato chip. Li Xianyi was moved by Lu Xiaoyu's actions. Although Lu Xiaoyu angered him a lot, Li Xianyi felt that the action of offering a potato chip by Lu Xiaoyu was forgivable. Be it Lu Xiaoyu or Lu Shu, both of them were good kids in the eyes of Li Xianyi. Just then, after struggling with herself for some time, Lu Xiaoyu broke the potato chip into half. She handed Li Xianyi one half. "I've already apologized, one half would do." Lu Shu had just packed his stinky tofu and was about to set off for work when a new line of distress points came in. "Ah, good luck, old man. As he walked past their yard, Auntie Lou was hanging the laundry and Lu Shu smiled. "Auntie, do brew more tea for Grandpa. It can help him relax and cool his body." Li Xianyi, who was by the side, did not feel like it was extremely apartment. Why did he feel like he was gloating? From Li Xianyi's distress, +17. After setting up his shop in the morning, Lu Shu saw a small police car driving towards him. 2 policemen alighted and looked at him. "Are you the one selling stinky tofu here? Someone has reported to us about you." Lu Shu's face turned green. What is there to report about? In this day and age, everything was an affair of the police. The police are far more dedicated now, as could be seen from this. A fly appearing in your meal in a restaurant could involve the police. Public brawls involved the police. To summarize, everything which was true could be reported to the police. One of them smiled slightly. "Someone called us to report that even after you have finished selling, you still stay here to act. People are reporting that you are cheating their feelings." Oh, Lu Shu was annoyed. Who was so free to report over such a minor incident? "I just want to earn some distress points, why call the police?" The other policeman continued. "It's okay, don't worry. We were just kidding. No one called the police. We're actually here to buy stinky tofu from you." Lu Shu was relieved. As long as there was no trouble, anything was fine. Even if they really were looking for trouble, it was such a small matter. His identity as a student of Daoyuan class would probably be enough to protect him. However, it seemed like his act to earn some distress points was getting infamous. Would this affect his business? Lu Shu received the money from the 2 policemen and handed them 2 portions of stinky tofu. After pondering for a long time, Lu Shu decided to use a new method. As the tofu was selling out, Lu Shu put the last piece out on display. Its pungent odor spread to as far as tens of meters, and distress points were amassed that way. At this moment, someone noticed the stinky tofu and walked over. As he walked over, he was thinking. At least this little boss was not acting today, he's even displaying his tofu. "Boss, 1 portion please," the man said as he withdrew $5 from his wallet. Lu Shu laughed unreservedly. "Not selling, I have none left." The customer was confused. "Isn't there one right here? This is a sample." Since when did stinky tofu need a sample to sell? "Do you think you're selling phones?" From Li Tang's distress, +117. Lu Shu had planned it all. Even if no one came to ask him about it next time, as long as 1 portion was there spreading its scent, he would gain distress points. Only after earning 5,000 distress points would he leave. He was this stubborn. After some time, the 2 policemen came back and said to Lu Shu with confused faces, "This time someone really reported to us about you." This time, Lu Shu showed his pass from Daoyuan class and the 2 policemen were dazed. A few days ago, they were informed that anything related to Daoyuan class students were to be handed over and handled by Luocheng International School and the person's contact number, 139. Handed over? And the reason for Lu Shu's crime was cheating the feelings of others by selling tofu? No way.
What does it mean to be happy? 'Cause it looks like we all don't know. Glass half full or empty, man, we just putting on a show. Try to look to the heavens.